So I have here my 27-year-old, 26-year-old water pump for my fresh water in my RV. It has been leaking from right here. And I took it apart the other day and pulled a bunch of really nasty plastic pieces, looked to be ancient hose parts. Cleaned it, I put it back together, and it was still leaking, but not quite as badly. I written the company and asked them if they could recommend what parts I need to replace it, restore it. I would prefer to fix this one, even though it's kind of noisy and ancient, because, you know, it matches the age of the RV, and I'm really into keeping everything age appropriate when I'm rehabbing a vehicle. But, you know, if I have to replace it with something quieter and newer, I will. But if there's a cheap, easy fix to this, I will take it. So, in the meanwhile, make an attempt at fixing it by adding a small bead of silicone along the inside edge here, which I'm going to have to take this all apart, and then I'm going to dry it really good, let it cure for a couple days, so I've got some water supply in jugs right now so that I won't run out of water while I don't have the pump hooked up. So we'll see if this helps at all. I don't expect it to be a long-term cure, but even if it gets me just a couple more months of service out of this pump, it'll be great. And the leak isn't really bad right now. It's the extent where I could just use the pump occasionally if I put some towels down first. But hopefully this will stop the leak completely, or reduce it to, you know, a drip an hour or something a little bit more manageable than that. So I'll show you how I take this guy apart here. So you're going to notice these are the screws that hold it on here, and they're not all the same type of screw. Some of them go all the way into the body of the machine, and some of them just go into these little brackets here. So I'm going to take them out in order, starting from the top, and line them up here so that I don't get my screws confused on the way back out. Alright, so here's the device taken apart here. And as you can see, I've got the screws in a row here, starting from the top, next, you know, so on and so forth. Now, the reason why I do this is because I'm constantly losing screws, and that is the bane of my existence. And then I have to go make a 30-minute trip or longer to get to the hardware store and find replacements. The other thing is when you're dealing with an old piece of machinery or vehicle, a lot of these screws will be either proprietary in some way, not in this case, but sometimes, or they will have slightly warped with the application, so they are the only thing that will fit in place easily anymore. So what I'm going to do, so that I can try to preserve these screws as long as possible, and also make them easier to use, is I'm going to line them up in a row here, and I've soaked them with just a bit of a generic automotive type lubricant. I usually like to use a certain type of lubricant called strong arm spray or USA fluid, but I actually don't have any right now. So this is just a generic you know, WD-40 substitute, and the reason I do this is just to give them a little bit of protection. Strong Arm would do a lot better. I mean, USA Fluid, they changed their name last year, but this will give it a little start, and it'll also make it easier to put them back into place later. So basically, I think what's happened that's causing this to leak is I think this white sort of gasket here has probably shrunk over time, considering it's, you know, 25, 26 years old. So until the company gets back to me just to say if they have this gasket or if they recommend, you know, a certain rebuild kit or whatever, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a very, very tiny amount of silicone where that's supposed to sit right here. and I'm gonna apply a very, very, very thin layer. And you can see I've wiped this down and then let it dry. So it'll be a nice dry surface for the silicone to sit on. People might say don't use silicone, it's not a good idea, it's going to be hard to remove later. Okay, well maybe it will, but you know, I'm one step away from throwing this pump out and replacing it with a brand new model. So I mean, this is a 30-cent fix that may preserve the unit a little while. I think it's worth it to try. Now the other thing that some people might say is, you know, the silicone isn't, you know, approved for contact with water, or it's not approved for contact with drinking water. Well, it's only going to be contacting a very small amount of water because it's just backing up the job of the actual seal or gasket. So, you know, I mean, the amount of water touching it is going to be so minuscule, I don't think it's worth worrying about. Alright, so I've applied an incredibly tiny thin line of silicone all the way around the edge here. And now I'm gonna put the part that goes in place here and probably lightly screw it together and let it cure for a time. Alright, so I've just basically about finger tightened these little guys down, and the body screws I just went ahead and threw in their respective spots. And I'm going to let it cure probably at least 24 hours or maybe longer, since there's a lot of humidity in here and there's not a lot of airflow to get into it. And I'm not going to attach it to the motor of the pump itself because I don't want to restrict any more of the airflow than necessary. And then once I do finally tighten it back down all the way, I'm hoping that that will just seal any gaps in there, and hopefully there will be no leaking or very minimal leaking. We'll see how hard I hate myself after, you know, if I get proper parts for it and I have to take all this apart. Hopefully it won't be too bad. I'm guessing that I'll probably be replacing most of the parts the silicone is actually touching if I get a rebuild kit anyways, so hopefully I won't hate myself too hard. We shall see. If you like this video, go ahead and like and then subscribe to my channel. I will be posting an update about how the pump's doing, and I'll also be updating in the comments in a week or two when I have it installed and I've been using it for a while, and let y'all know how it turned out. Thanks for watching. Bye.